Here's something your doctor probably never had time to explain in a 12-minute appointment. The blood sugar spike you get after breakfast isn't just about what you eat, it's about a war happening inside your body before you even open your eyes. Between roughly 3 and 8 in the morning, your liver floods your bloodstream with glucose, on purpose, as part of waking you up. For most people, insulin handles it quietly in the background. But if you're over 60, there's a good chance your body is already fighting an uphill battle before that first bite of food even happens. And what you choose to eat in that window can either add fuel to that fire or shut it down fast. Today I'm going to walk you through the single most effective breakfast approach for lowering blood sugar in older adults, verified against clinical research from Weill Cornell Medicine, the University of Missouri, the American Diabetes Association, and the CDC's most recent national diabetes data. This isn't one food, it's a specific formula. And once you see it, you'll understand exactly why some healthy breakfasts that seniors eat every single day are quietly working against them. Stay with me through the end, because I'm going to show you a breakfast that millions of older adults eat, believing it's one of the healthiest choices on the shelf that can spike blood sugar almost as high as a donut. You need to know which one it is before tomorrow morning. Before we get into it, subscribe and hit the bell so you don't miss the rest of this series. And tell me in the comments, what does your breakfast usually look like right now? I read every comment and I want to know what we're working with. I'm Dr. Daniel Carter. I've spent more than 15 years in internal medicine, and before I give you the formula, I want to spend a few minutes explaining why breakfast specifically matters so much more than lunch or dinner when it comes to blood sugar, especially after 60. Once you understand this, everything else in this video will make sense, and you'll actually remember it instead of just following a list. Here's the part almost nobody explains well. Blood sugar isn't equally easy to control at every hour of the day. In the early morning, your body releases a natural surge of cortisol and growth hormone, hormones that exist specifically to raise your blood sugar and give you energy to wake up. In a healthy young person, the pancreas simply releases more insulin to match that surge, and blood sugar stays balanced without you noticing a thing. But insulin resistance, sensitivity, and pancreatic response all decline with age. That means the same morning hormone surge that barely registers in a 30-year-old can leave a 68-year-old with meaningfully higher blood sugar before they've eaten anything at all. This pattern has a name in clinical medicine. It's called the dawn phenomenon, and according to the American Diabetes Association, it affects roughly half of all people with either type 1 or type 2 diabetes. On top of that, your body's cells tend to be more insulin resistant earlier in the day than later, which is a major reason breakfast frequently produces the highest post-meal blood sugar spike of any meal, even when the calorie and carbohydrate content is identical to lunch or dinner. Now here's why this conversation matters so much specifically for people watching this in their 60s, 70s, and 80s. According to the CDC's most recent National Diabetes Statistics Report, an estimated 31.3 million Americans aged 65 and older, just over half of that entire age group, already have prediabetes. Most don't know it. Prediabetes rarely has symptoms you can feel. It shows up quietly, in a fasting glucose number or an A1C result, long before anything feels wrong. That means if you're over 65 and watching this video, the odds are close to a coin flip that your body is already somewhere on this spectrum, whether you've been told that or not. This is exactly why breakfast deserves more attention than any other meal. You're eating it during the hours your body is naturally least equipped to handle glucose, and if you're in the roughly 50% of seniors with prediabetes or diabetes, that natural disadvantage is amplified. The good news is that this also means breakfast is where a smart choice pays off the most. Fix the meal that's working against you the hardest, and you get outsized results. So what is the number one breakfast? It isn't a single food, and I want to be upfront about that instead of oversimplifying it into a gimmick. The research points to a specific formula, 5 components working together, that consistently outperforms any single superfood breakfast in clinical studies. I'm going to walk you through each piece, why it matters specifically for people over 60, and exactly how to put it on a plate. Then I'll show you the trap. Component 1. The protein anchor. The single most well-supported change you can make to a breakfast for blood sugar control is anchoring it around 25 to 30 grams of protein. A study out of the University of Missouri, led by researcher Heather Leedy, had women eat breakfasts with different protein levels, a low-protein pancake meal versus egg and sausage meals containing 30 to 39 grams of protein, then tracked their blood glucose and insulin for 4 hours afterward. The higher protein breakfasts produced meaningfully better glucose and insulin control than the low-protein option. This lines up with broader research published in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition, showing that increasing the protein proportion of a meal improves post-meal blood glucose response, specifically in people with type 2 diabetes. Here's what makes this finding especially important if you're over 60, and it's a connection almost no blood sugar video makes. Protein at breakfast isn't just doing a favor for your glucose levels, it's doing double duty for your muscles. Research on aging and muscle loss, a condition called sarcopenia, has found that older adults experience something called anabolic resistance. The same amount of protein that easily builds or maintains muscle in a younger adult produces a blunted response after 60. Researchers studying this consistently land on the same number. Roughly 25 to 30 grams of high-quality protein per meal is what's needed to meaningfully stimulate muscle protein synthesis in an older adult, and some research in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition suggests that number may run even higher, up to 40 grams, to get the same effect that 20 grams produces in a younger person. Most older adults get the bulk of their daily protein at dinner and eat almost none of it at breakfast. That's backwards. A protein-forward breakfast is quietly fighting two of the biggest health threats of aging at the same time: blood sugar instability and muscle loss in a single meal. What to do? Build your breakfast around 25 to 30 grams of protein. 2 eggs get you to roughly 12 grams, so pair them with something else: Greek yogurt, cottage cheese, or a small serving of smoked salmon. Plain Greek yogurt alone typically delivers 15 to 20 grams per cup. I want to be honest with you about eggs specifically, because the research here is genuinely mixed, and I'd rather tell you that than oversimplify it. A Framingham offspring study analysis published in Nutrients found that people eating 5 or more eggs a week had lower fasting glucose and a lower risk of developing impaired fasting glucose or type 2 diabetes over a 4-year follow-up. But a separate pooled analysis of 9 U.S. cohort studies found the opposite pattern at higher intakes, with 2 or more eggs per week associated with increased type 2 diabetes risk. The honest takeaway is that eggs in moderation, roughly 3 to 5 a week, appear to fit comfortably within a blood sugar-friendly diet, but they shouldn't be your only protein source every single morning. Rotate them with yogurt, cottage cheese, and fish. Component 2. Soluble fiber. The American Diabetes Association recommends a fiber goal of 14 grams for every 1,000 calories consumed, which works out to roughly 28 grams a day on a 2,000-calorie diet. Most older adults fall well short of that, and breakfast is usually the meal where fiber is most completely absent. Soluble fiber specifically, the type found in chia seeds, oats, and berries, forms a gel-like substance in the digestive tract that physically slows the rate at which sugar enters your bloodstream. A double-blind, placebo-controlled study published in the journal Nature Scientific Reports found significantly lower blood glucose levels in healthy adults after they consumed bread made with chia seeds compared to standard bread. Berries deserve a specific mention here too. A half cup of raspberries delivers close to 4 grams of fiber, roughly double what most fruits provide in the same serving, while staying relatively low on the glycemic index. Combining a fiber source with your protein at breakfast isn't just an add-on, it's doing real physiological work to blunt the glucose curve that follows. What to do? Add 1 to 2 tablespoons of chia seeds to Greek yogurt or stir them into whatever you're already eating. Add a half cup of raspberries, blueberries, or strawberries on the side. If you eat oats, and I'll come back to this in a few minutes, choose steel-cut or old-fashioned rolled oats, never the instant packets, for the fiber structure to stay intact. Component 3. Healthy fat. Fat slows gastric emptying, meaning it slows how quickly the stomach releases its contents into the small intestine, where sugar gets absorbed into the bloodstream. This is why a meal with fat in it produces a gentler glucose curve than the same carbohydrates eaten alone. A randomized controlled trial published in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition, conducted at the University of British Columbia, tested this directly in people with type 2 diabetes. Participants ate a low-carb, high-fat breakfast, an omelet with cheese, cream, and spinach on one day, and a higher-carb, low-fat breakfast, oats with fruit and low-fat yogurt on another, with both breakfasts matched for calories and protein. Using continuous glucose monitors, the researchers found the low-carb, high-fat breakfast prevented the blood sugar spike that typically follows a meal in people with diabetes and produced less glucose variability across the full 24 hours that followed. Participants also reported feeling less hungry and having fewer sugar cravings later that day. What to do? Don't fear fat at breakfast. It's one of your best tools. A small handful of walnuts or almonds, a quarter of an avocado, or cooking your eggs in real butter or olive oil rather than eating them dry all help flatten the glucose response to the meal as a whole. Component 4. The order you eat matters, not just what's on the plate. This next piece of research surprises almost everyone the first time they hear it, and it might be the single most actionable finding in this entire video. Researchers at Weill Cornell Medical College, led by Dr. Louis Aron, had patients with type 2 diabetes eat an identical meal on different days, but changed only the order in which the food was consumed. When vegetables and protein were eaten first, followed by carbohydrates last, glucose levels were roughly 29% lower at 30 minutes, 37% lower at 60 minutes, and 17% lower at 120 minutes, compared to eating the exact same meal with carbohydrates first. Insulin levels were significantly lower too. This has since been replicated in additional studies, including a 2025 trial published in the journal Diabetes Care, which found that a carbohydrates last eating order improved time spent in a healthy glucose range and reduced glucose variability. A separate 5-year outpatient study found that patients taught the simple habit of eating vegetables before carbohydrates at every meal achieved significantly better long-term A1C control than those who weren't. This means 2 breakfasts with the exact same ingredients can produce very different blood sugar results just based on the order you eat them in. What to do if your breakfast includes any starchy or sugary component at all: fruit, toast, oatmeal, potatoes? Eat your eggs, yogurt, or any vegetables first. Give it even 5 minutes head start before you touch the carbohydrate portion of the meal. It costs nothing, and the research shows it works. Component 5. What you drink first. Here's one most people have never even considered. Research from the University of Bath Center for Nutrition, Exercise and Metabolism, published in the British Journal of Nutrition, found that drinking coffee before eating breakfast impaired blood sugar control compared to drinking that same coffee after breakfast, an effect that was especially pronounced following a night of poor sleep. For many older adults, sleep is already fragmented, which makes this finding particularly relevant. The habit of rolling out of bed and reaching for coffee before food touches your plate may be quietly working against your morning glucose control. What to do? If you drink coffee in the morning, try eating your protein and fiber first, even just a few bites, before your first cup. It's a small sequencing change with real evidence behind it. Now let's put the entire formula on one plate. This is what I'd call the #1 breakfast for lowering blood sugar after 60. 2 eggs scrambled in olive oil with spinach, eaten first. Alongside it, a half cup of plain Greek yogurt topped with a tablespoon of chia seeds and a half cup of raspberries or blueberries, eaten second. A small handful of walnuts on the side. If you want toast or oats, have a small portion last after everything else, and hold your coffee until you've eaten the first few bites. That single plate checks every box the research supports: 25 to 30 grams of protein, real soluble fiber, healthy fat to slow absorption, a smart eating order, and no rushed cup of coffee stealing the advantage before you've even started. Now here's the catch I told you about at the start, and it's one almost no one talks about. If your usual breakfast is a bowl of instant oatmeal, I need you to hear this clearly because it may be one of the most misunderstood healthy foods on grocery store shelves. Oatmeal is not one food. It's a whole spectrum of processing, and the glycemic impact changes dramatically depending on which kind you're eating. Steel-cut oats sit at a glycemic index around 42 to 55, genuinely low glycemic. Old-fashioned rolled oats land just above that, in the mid-50s, but instant oatmeal, the kind that comes in individual packets and cooks in 90 seconds, has a glycemic index that can run as high as 79 to 83. That's in the same range as white bread. The reason is processing. Instant oats are pre-cooked, then rolled paper-thin and dehydrated, which destroys much of the fiber structure that would normally slow digestion down. On top of that, flavored instant oatmeal packets, the maple brown sugar and cinnamon spice varieties most people actually buy, typically contain 10 to 15 grams of added sugar per packet. So a breakfast that feels virtuous, a warm bowl of oatmeal, can spike blood sugar nearly as fast and as high as a bowl of sugary cereal, while the person eating it has no idea, because the word oatmeal carries so much unearned trust. What to do if you use oats? Choose steel cut or plain old-fashioned rolled oats, never the instant flavored packets. Cook them in water, not juice or sweetened milk. Add your own cinnamon, a small handful of berries, and a scoop of protein like Greek yogurt or a spoon of nut butter stirred in, which research shows can reduce the glycemic response by roughly 20 to 30% on its own. And remember component 4, eat your protein first, oats last. Now, when should you actually call your doctor about this? A few things are worth knowing. First, if you take medication for diabetes, particularly insulin or a sulfonylurea, changing your breakfast pattern, especially reducing carbohydrates significantly, can affect how those medications work and raise your risk of blood sugar dropping too low. Don't make major changes without looping in your doctor or pharmacist first. Second, the protein targets I mentioned today, 25 to 30 grams per meal, are appropriate for most healthy older adults. But if you have chronic kidney disease, protein needs to be managed much more carefully, and a higher intake can actually be harmful. Your kidney function should guide that number, not a general recommendation from a video. Third, if you haven't had a fasting glucose or A1C test in the last year and you're over 60, that's worth asking for at your next appointment. Given that roughly half of adults 65 and older already have prediabetes, most without knowing it, that single blood draw is the only way to know which side of that statistic you're actually on. Let me tell you about a patient of mine, Robert, 68 years old, retired, recently told at a routine physical that his fasting glucose put him solidly in the pre-diabetic range. He was frustrated because by his own account, he'd been eating what he thought was a heart-healthy breakfast for years. Instant oatmeal most mornings, black coffee first thing while it cooked, fruit on the side. When we walked through it together using exactly what I've shown you today,